Hey, it's Scott Beebe, the Business on Purpose podcast. We're here to liberate you from the chaos of working in your business. Thanks for joining me as always. mybusinessonpurpose.com/vision. If you need clarity in knowing where you're going in your business or quite frankly in your life. Guys, I am doing this episode because in the last 24 hours, I've had 4 conversations with 4 different people who are running 4 different businesses who are not the 100% owner of their business. One is the president CEO of a family-run company. The other 3 are partial owners of the companies. And I want to tell you right out of the gate, every one of them, 4 out of 4, 100% of the 4 people I've talked to are in stressed, balled situations regarding the ownership issue within their company. They feel hamstrung. They feel like they're immovable. They're in a box, and they don't know where to go. Guys, this is why we talk all the time about ownership, partnership, joint venture, all of that stuff. The reality is, the overwhelming majority of the time, partnerships are fraught with complications. Why Dave Ramsey says the only ship that doesn't sail is a partnership. Do partnerships fail 100% of the time? No. Do they struggle the majority of the time? Yes. I'm just using that from statistics that I've had over the past years of having conversations with people. Now, am I biased because I deal with a lot of folks who are feeling chaotic and need help? Yes. Although I feel like if you extrapolate the data, you'll find out that the majority of folks who are in partnerships are really in a struggle, but it's a silent struggle. They're not willing to talk about it unless you get them alone, and they're willing to genuinely open up about their situation. Am I telling you shouldn't be in a partnership? No. Am I telling you should go really slow? Yes. Am I telling you it should be very thoughtful about what a partnership looks like? Yes. I wanted to mention something that I go back to in just about every discussion I have around this issue of equity partnership, ownership, joint venture, whatever. And those are different things, by the way. That's why I'm mentioning them all differently. The one thing that is the kind of the thread that runs throughout every conversation I have about ownership, regardless of what's going on, legal documents, getting documents written out, explicitly stating exactly what the understanding is within this relationship. I'm going to call it a relationship instead of a partnership or any one type of venture involving more than one person. I'm going to call it a relationship. If you want to be in an organizational and particularly equity-driven relationship with somebody else, meaning there is a profit share of some kind, there is a bonus share of some kind, there's an equity share of if there could be any confusion at all about the ownership of the company, it's got to start with writing it down on paper. Not writing it down in your minds, not writing it down in your hearts, as sweet as that sounds. You've got to write it down on a sheet of paper, and that paper has got to be signed, it's got to be copied, it's got to be shared, and it's got to be reviewed on a regular basis. I know we don't want to talk about end of life. I know we don't want to talk about what if. The reality is, in the last 12 months, I've talked to a number of people where either directly I've known somebody who's passed away, or indirectly the person I'm talking to has had somebody who's passed away. And they are now left holding what I'll call a lot of times is a nightmare. And they really don't know where to go because it's not written down. There's not explicit step-by-step instructions. And when somebody passes away in that situation, this isn't even the dominant conversation I wanted to have around this. I'm just using this as an example. If it is not expressly written down and handled from a legal standpoint with documentation as far as the next steps of what happens with that asset of the business, you have just bought yourself a ticket to a really, really challenging time. And the courts are going to be delighted to be able to take that over and to nitpick every step, every ounce, every fabric of the business. But it's not just that. For the statistical reality that nobody's going to die and the business is just going to continue to move on and to grow. Then we've got to look at the business as who's going to share in the profits. When do those profits get doled out? What does an equity draw look like? What does salary look like? We've got one business owner right now who's working in a business, and I mentioned this a little bit in the last podcast. They are making a tiny salary for the time that they're putting in. It's got to be written out. Please, at the time of this recording, it's the end of the year. This is a great time to have the conversation. And you might say, well, how do I have that conversation? Well, you can simply come back and say, hey, listen, for the sake of both of our relationship, I want to lay out on paper exactly what this looks like if something happens. Not just death, but if something else happens. I want to lay it out, what it looks like. Please make the time to do it. Please make the time to do it. I'm going to give you a piece of advice here. I'm going to give you a foolproof, 100% guaranteed way that this will not work. This will fail you. Drawing up documents, drawing these things out, writing them out will fail you if you don't do it 100% of the time. But if you do it, if you write these things out, it's going to provide more clarity. And if you do it through a legal structure, they're going to help you think step by step legally how it can navigate things if things really do go south. And you need to just plan for that. It's not wise to not plan for that, because statistically, emotions are real and emotions get involved. I've watched people who deeply love each other completely break a relationship because things were not written down. So please write them down. Just take the time, have the tough conversation, and do it in a way that serves. Use language in such a way that serves. And in time, you'll be really glad you did. Hey, if you need clarity in your business, head on over to mybusinessonpurpose.com/vision. You can start writing your vision story out right now. Thanks for joining me on the Business on Purpose podcast. I'll see you next time, where we liberate you from the chaos of working in your business.